The late 90s to early 2000s was truly an interesting era for video games. It was a time where each new generation of video game consoles made massive strides in technological improvement. Evergreen franchises like Mario Kart, Sonic the Hedgehog, Pokemon, and Halo were just being born, and the budding console wars pitted Sega against Nintendo for global gaming domination. It was a wild time and something that I never got to fully experience as a kid born in the early 90s. When I first heard the term console war, it referred to the beef between Microsoft and Sony. Yes, it was a different time, a time when people weren't able to avoid eye contact with each other on the subway by looking at their smartphones. No, sometimes they had to use these archaic texts called magazines. Even to this day, magazines are published that cater to all sorts of niche hobbies and interests. Portable restroom operator magazine, anyone? So it should come as no surprise that there were numerous magazines focused on video games back in the day. Nintendo Power, Computer Gaming World, Game Informer, Electronic Gaming Monthly. There were plenty of options to choose from if you wanted some hard copy text about electronic entertainment. During this time, internet access was still not ubiquitous, and those lucky enough to own a computer had to deal with slow dial-up speeds. Access to gaming content like upcoming releases and reviews of existing games was very hard to come by. Not everyone was internet savvy or frankly old enough to surf the web and discover fan-made forums or websites like GameFAQs.com. YouTube didn't exist yet, so the closest thing that folks had to modern video game content was the cable channel G4TV, which came online in 2002. The rest of us peasants who couldn't afford premium cable channels had to read gaming magazines to keep up to date on all the latest developments. Just like TV channels, or frankly YouTube videos, are frequently interrupted by commercial breaks and ad interruptions, these magazines were plastered all over with print advertisements. Airtime is expensive, so what better way to promote your new game than to put an ad in a magazine for fans of video games? I'd argue these kinds of ads were some of the earliest forms of targeted advertising. Given the narrow demographic for video game print ads, it seems as though the advertisers responsible for them decided to get a little, creative? What I'm trying to say is that print ads for retro video games are weird as hell. Entertainment of this era was known for its edgy, radical, in-your-face, eat-my-shorts bad attitude, and this extended into the world of advertising. If you watch any of the other videos on my channel, you'll notice that some crazy bizarre commercials were the norm during this time. Oh, and speaking of my channel, the topic of this episode was actually decided by my supporters over on Patreon. Our Patreon community is still small, so special shout out to Tentacle Teapot, etc., and Roz for placing the winning votes. I just realized I have not stated the topic of this video explicitly yet, so if the title or thumbnail didn't give it away, we're going to be taking a look at all sorts of video game print ads from the 90s and early 2000s. We're going to compare them to the games that they were advertising and just marvel at how bizarre they are. I typically like to give more of a deep dive into the topics that I cover and uncover some obscure and undiscovered information, but this is the sort of thing that I think is better to just, have fun, experience it, and let it speak for itself. Now, I initially struggled with how to organize this video, but I think the 3 words I used earlier to describe these print ads is the best way to categorize them. We're talking the crude, the lewd, and the edgy. Crude ads tend to have a focus on scatological humor and are clearly meant to shock and/or offend a sensitive, conservative reader in some capacity. However, these are still advertisements, and ads are ultimately meant to sell shit, and making a potential customer pissed off is not a good strategy. But since their intended audience was usually teenage boys, they had a lot of room to push the envelope. Let's start with this ad for the Duel Test Drive 2 for the Super Nintendo. The page is dominated by a pair of briefs, and the ad tells you you're gonna crap yourself from playing this game. Wow, this game must be crazy intense. I gotta check out some of this high-octane action. While this game looks marginally more entertaining than Desert Bus, I think my underwear is safe. Here's the most confusing ad I saw for Cruisin' World for the Nintendo 64. B1. B what? Exactly. A hot dog? A wiener? Do they mean like be a winner, but with like a weird Mario accent? Oh, okay. The text at the bottom says, enough tricks to turn anybody into a hot dog. Is that a thing that people say? Is that real slang? Like, man, you're a real hot dog. This ad, which says, tell Santa you want balls for Christmas, sounds more offensive than it actually is when you realize that Balls is the name of a terrible fighting game for the SNES that looks like hot garbage. SpongeBob SquarePants was incredibly popular and had a few releases during this period, including the obscure and oft-forgotten Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, as well as the cult favorite Battle for Bikini Bottom. This ad for Revenge of the Flying Dutchman lets us know that SpongeBob does not want to grab a handful of juicy Dutchman tail, and even throws shade on itself. Another thoughtful, intelligent conversation from the new SpongeBob video game. This one for Battle for Bikini Bottom actually made me laugh out loud the first time I saw it. Yeah, there's just something about it. Next up is Virtua Tennis for the Sega Dreamcast, which was so spicy it had to be censored. So as not to violate YouTube's community guidelines, I'll be showing the censored version of the ad. If you're wondering what exactly is censored here, do you see the guy on the left with the towel? Well, in the uncensored version, you can see his full behind. I'm sure you're all very disappointed. This is a very strange way to advertise a tennis game, but I'm sure somebody was paid plenty of money to concoct this brilliant idea. Wireless controllers were a novelty at one point, so how did advertisers decide to promote this revolutionary new technological breakthrough? By letting you know you can now play GameCube games while sitting on the toilet. Oh, how irreverent. Rayman had some pretty wild print ads. This one for Rayman 2: The Great Escape, I honestly don't understand it other than the fact that it's an innuendo. So if someone would like to explain to me how this relates to the game at all in the comments, I'd appreciate it. I would get it if this was a multiplayer game with like 4-player co-op, but I know it's a single-player game. So why? For many reasons, why. It seems they refined their innuendo abilities by the time Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc came out. No arms, no legs, huge features. I don't have to spell this one out for you, but I would like to point out something I found very funny. They're very proud of their official trailer featuring Matter by Groove Armada. Either that or they were contractually obligated to mention that fact at every conceivable opportunity. I saved the best for last, which is a rejected print ad for the Mario spin-off soccer game Super Mario Strikers, released on Nintendo GameCube in the year 2005. The ad was uncovered by Liam Robertson, a video game journalist and lost game sleuth. It's not surprising that if any Mario game were to have edgy advertising, it's Strikers. This game was definitely trying its best to be edgy. If the promotional art for this game isn't enough to convince you that they were trying to break Mario of his innocent image and appeal to an older demographic, this is also the game where Waluigi crotch chops when he wins a match. Behold, a pair of soccer balls dangling in a sack with the text, "You're gonna need a pair." Wow. The fact that this was even made means that Nintendo was very close to using this as an advertisement for their Mario soccer game. While it's rather clever, it's unsurprising to me that it didn't make the cut. The next category I want to look at is lewd ads, and by that I mean ads that are clearly trying to use sex appeal to sell their products. I'll take a moment to say, yes, many of these ads are quite sexist and love to objectify women, But I think there is some value in seeing how absolutely unhinged some of these ads truly were. This period of time had a very strange way of using lewd ads to sell properties that you'd think would normally be considered family-friendly or even kid-oriented content. So I'm not talking about lewd ads for a game like, I don't know, like Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, where the sexiness was literally the entire point of the game's existence. No, I'm talking about stuff like this. This is an ad for Micro Machines V3. For those who might be unfamiliar, Micro Machines was a brand of toys, kind of similar to Hot Wheels. I actually had quite a few of these playsets as a child. Apparently, they also made a video game for the PSX, which this was meant to advertise. While the innuendo is a bit jarring, that's not even close to the weirdest ad I found for clearly kid-friendly video games. Let's play a little game and see if you can identify the video game from a section of its print ad. What do you think this is an ad for? That's right, it's Klonoa, Door to Phantomile. Phantomile? I don't know. For the Sony PlayStation, which is a game that looks like this. How about this one? Would you guess Goemon's Great Adventure for the Nintendo 64? The tagline here is interesting. God knows what it's about, but it sure is fun. By that, they just mean it's very Japanese. The game looks like this, so I'm a little surprised they wanted to market it with women in swimsuits. How about these fine strapping gentlemen? They're from an ad for Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back for the PSX. Despite being a game with cartoon characters that was very popular with children, Crash's advertising was always a bit weirder and edgier than other platformers.
Hey, plumber boy, mustache man, your worst nightmare has arrived.
Pack up your stuff. I got a little surprise for you here.
Check it out. What do you think about that? We got real-time, 3D, lush organic environments. How's that make you feel, buddy?
Feel a little like your days are numbered? I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. You're hurting my elbow.
That still doesn't explain this print ad for Crash: The Wrath of Cortex. I know they're clearly parodying Pokemon with this tagline here, but still, seems a little much for a game rated E for everyone. Gex 3 was rated T for teen, so I suppose it has a little more leeway in its approach to advertising, but still, come on. This is how it was advertised. You might be wondering why a cartoon gecko is grabbing a model's boobs, but this is actually a parody of a famous magazine cover of the time with Janet Jackson as the model. Sometimes it's just an odd choice to market a game with sex appeal given its content. Pro Fishing Challenge for the Xbox was considered a complex fishing simulator and looks about as exciting as actually fishing. Apologies to any avid anglers watching. So how do you market this game? Why, with a model in heels reeling in a largemouth bass.
Size does matter.
Besides video games themselves, of course there are also consoles that are needed to play them on, and those need to be sold as well. And what better way to sell consoles than pictures of scantily clad women? This print ad for the Neo Geo is actually an edited version of the original, which censored some weirdly phallic imagery on the TV screen. If you think that ad is a bit on the nose, wait till you see this ad for the Sega Saturn. This is a 2-page centerfold spread with screen grabs of Saturn games covering the model's sensitive areas. The joke is that with how cool the Sega Saturn is, you won't even notice the beautiful woman, but I have a feeling most readers were probably just mad at Virtua Fighter 2 and Guardian Heroes. Once again, I saved the weirdest and most unhinged for last, which is whatever the hell Nintendo was doing to promote the Game Boy. The Game Boy Pocket, in particular, was known for risque advertisements, and this is the subject of the most infamous Nintendo ad of all time. Seriously distracting. This is typically the ad that most people point to when describing how edgy video game magazine ads used to be during this time. Let's hope that the scene depicted is consensual. And Nintendo continued with its highly sexualized Game Boy advertising well into the 2000s with this ad for the Game Boy Advance SP. I understand it's clearly trying to parody like men's cologne ads, but still, weird choice. Finally, we come to the edgy ads. I'm classifying these as ones that are intended to be offensive, mean-spirited, or shocking in some serious way. Dissing the competition was pretty common at the time, like we can see here in this ad for Croc for PSX. No, I'm not really talking about ads like that. I'm talking about ads that took it one step further and could have only been made during this era of edgy advertising. Take this one, for example. It's an ad for Virtua Fighter for the Sega Mega Drive 32X, which was an add-on for the Sega Genesis. The implications are quite sinister despite being tongue-in-cheek, and I figure most folks these days wouldn't consider child abuse to be particularly funny. This one is pretty bizarre. It's an ad for the Sega Dreamcast game Seaman, which is widely considered one of the weirdest games ever made. It's a virtual pet game where you take care of an intelligent fish creature with the face of a middle-aged man, communicating with it through the use of a Dreamcast microphone. Seaman actually always reminds me of this scene from a Japanese surrealist movie called Funky Forest. The text in the corner of the ad reads, "I will not mate outside my species. I will not mate outside my species. I will not mate outside my species." I won't spell out the implications here, but you can use your imagination. Next up is an ad for Sonic Adventure, which debuted on the Sega Dreamcast. This was part of a series of Dreamcast print ads that directly insulted the reader. Not sure how this moved copies of the game exactly, but here it is. The text says, "Sonic has a new lightspeed dash. Too bad your lame-ass reflexes are the same." It seems Sega has been shitposting with Sonic the Hedgehog since 1999. The next one is for Sega Bass Fishing, which has text that reads, "Unfortunately for you, all the dumb fish are in the other games." See, they really just keep insulting you. Also, the fine print has a line that says, "Moving gills, slapping tails, bitchin' fishing." These advertisers are really trying hard to make fishing seem edgy.
Bite fish!
There's gonna be a big bonus! You're on mistake. Be careful. This one's huge!
The next two ads are sports titles for the Dreamcast. NFL 2K's text reads, "It knows you like running off tackle on 3rd and short. Obstinate little tool, aren't you?" And NBA 2K's text says, "Iverson learns from your mistakes. Apparently, that's a full-time job." So, according to Sega, you're a dumb, obstinate little tool who can't do anything right with lame-ass reflexes. They clearly hold their clientele in very high esteem. Lastly, we're about to witness the edgiest of the edgy, and apologies, to folks, because it is rather offensive. It's a print ad for the computer real-time strategy game Command & Conquer, which was first released in 1995. It's a 2-page spread of Adolf Hitler surveying his troops, and the text above reads, "It's a great feeling." So they knew exactly what they were doing with this one, and it was clearly meant to shock the reader. They could have chosen any military leader to make this ad, like Napoleon or Alexander the Great, but they chose the single most genocidal evil dictator in history for their poster boy. So it is really stunning how something like this got through an entire marketing department approved by an agency and a game studio. But this just goes to show how you could get away with a lot more offensive material back in the day. Before we close, I'd like to end on a much lighter note. which is my personal favorite print ad that I stumbled upon while doing research for this video. It's an ad for Paper Mario, the first one for the N64, which is actually one of my favorite games of all time. It's a paper cutout of Mario with the text, "Free demo." I thought that was pretty clever. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the weird, bizarre world of retro video game print ads. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Tumblr page VG Print Ads, which is where I found most of these lovely scans of these print ads that you've been seeing throughout the video. If you like this video, then please like the video, and if you like the content on this channel and you'd like to see more in the future, then please don't forget to hit subscribe and please ring that bell. That way you're actually notified when new videos are uploaded to the channel. Imagine that, it's like how the subscribe button is supposed to work. And if you'd really, really like to make my day and make me very happy, then please check out my Patreon page. It is in the description below. On there I post lots of bonus content, some behind the scenes stuff, and also I love interacting with my Patreon members. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out before, consider doing that. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.